Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And I was just reading through this article here, which, this is something that I actually thought about, earlier as well. And I was discussing it with my brother about how, the possibility of this war, which in this article it does mention that and it hints at that. Okay, how this war, the what's now seeming to be the public outlook is that the U.S. and Israel miscalculated, and they didn't anticipate that Iran would react this way, and so this is now backfiring on them. Okay, but considering that this is something that they said has been, they were planning for months, and when you read about their ultimate plans, that they had this in the workings. Now, when you look at how World War I and World War II were fermented behind the scenes, there was a lot more going on behind the scenes than what the world was looking at or hearing concerning the actual war itself, in terms of how it was triggered, who was benefiting, and what the actual objective was by those wars. And it's the same here, right, as we're seeing with this situation that's going on with the U.S., Israel, and Iran, right? It's not, I'd be surprised if the elites or those on the higher ups that give Bibi his orders and Trump his orders did not anticipate or foresee Iran closing the Straits of Hormuz, or basically causing great economic turmoil, and also affecting oil, right, and the world's economies, that they didn't foresee that happening. That's a very, very plausible thing that they could do and would do, and now they are doing it. But anyway, let's read this article, and it'll make more sense as we read. So it says, energy expert warns UBS just how many weeks a Hormuz shutdown would send markets out of control. And he mentioned in here, as we're going to read, about Venezuela, and starting to make sense why they were so adamant about going in there. But something that was interesting, which he also mentions, is why were they not releasing the oil from Venezuela out to the world? It's almost like hoarding it. And remember that, they were harping on that, right? And then once they took Maduro out of all, like, why now? And it's almost like, they got him up out of there and said that, okay, we're going to take over their oil, production and everything there. And now the U.S. has control of that. But so if oil starts, skyrocketing out of control, in affecting some of these other countries, guess who has another good supply of oil? Conveniently acquiring it before this, before triggering this war. So it says here, it is only the 6th day of Operation Epic Fury and roughly the 4th and 5th day that commercial traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has been paralyzed, except for one Chinese-linked bulk carrier. Whether by IRGC drone threats or by insurers suspending vessel coverage. And already, energy economist Anas Al-Haji, who call him Anas, warned on a webinar with top UBS analysts that if this is going to last 4 weeks, that's where things will be completely out of control. So if this continues on, all right, into March, getting towards the next month, okay, which is April, okay, getting through March, it's gonna be pretty damaging, okay, and that's what he's saying, completely out of control. Banu Bawija, if I'm pronouncing that right, chief strategist at UBS, asked, what's this guy's name, Anas, on the webinar, how many days would the Strait of Hormuz need to remain shut for us to see a non-linear move in oil? Meaning when prices start jumping in a non-linear fashion, right? It's like, a linear fashion is like, okay, it's going up in let's say, I don't know, $1 a day, right? Every day it goes up $1. If you were to plot that on a graph, you'd see that line is just straight going up. But when you start having, it went up today $1, and then tomorrow it went up $10, and the day after $5, and the day after 15, and the day after 25, and the day after $12. That's nonlinear, okay? But that's unstable. It's just basically skyrocketing, as they would say. It says here, with prices rising to $100 or $120 per barrel, is there a timeline you can give us? Anas responded, our main scenario is that if this lasts 4 weeks, things will be completely out of control. And when I say out of control, I mean that even if China starts releasing oil from its inventories, the problem is that my guess is China would also restrict exports, which means that oil would remain in China. We were counting on that oil being in the market, and now it's not going to be in the market. He continued, the impact of the US SPR is limited. Saudi Arabia is completely out of the picture. All of that spare capacity in OPEC is out of the picture. So what do we do? We are then left relying on demand destruction to curb prices. So reducing demand. It says, and because of the panic buying, prices would go above $100 easily in this scenario. Anas warned about panic hoarding in the oil market. He said he questioned back in January. Now, this is the part, listen closely, why the Trump administration was hoarding Venezuela's oil after the Maduro raid instead of bringing it to market, which is a good question. Anas then emphasized, I'm not talking about conspiracy theories. We were criticizing the Trump administration, companies, and trading houses that bought Venezuelan oil and asking why they weren't able to sell it to end users and why they were hoarding it. So you got all this oil, why not sell it? Venezuela was dishing it out. Why, now that you have it in your grasp, why are you hoarding it rather than, releasing it or selling it? Now we know he was implying that this hoarding was in preparation for Operation Epic Fury. Now, let's say we go with this claim here, right? That this was in preparation for Operation Epic Fury, which they said they had been planning for months. Then in that case, it would almost seem like, well, things are going according to plan. The hidden hand plan behind the scenes. They want the world, and this is just me speculating, okay? But it's possible that they want the world talking in this way. They wanted Iran to do this, right? They wanted, knowing that they had bases in these areas and that it was possible that Iran would attack those bases because they threatened that before. That would affect these countries, these Gulf states, okay, and countries like Saudi Arabia and, different other countries that would be now at risk, and including the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and understanding how devastating that would be on the world economy. Well, if you're, war brings money. Okay, war it erases a lot of things, actually, in the sense of, you can have some very devastating news come out, like the release of certain files. And, depending on how intense the war is, people's focus shifts onto that. Okay. But as we see, there's always some agenda behind the scenes. Now, if you wanted to collapse the markets, you wanted to crash the world's economy and introduce a new system, well, this would seem like a very, a useful catalyst for something like that. Okay, and here it seems like there's a killing of a lot of birds with one stone, not just two. It says here, earlier in the webinar, Anas outlined critical questions. Is the war about Iran's nuclear program, or is something much larger at play, with Iran serving more as a trigger for broader strategic objectives? See that? And we will see in the coming weeks and months what ends up transpiring. And then you can look retrospectively and see the path that the world has followed post this Iran trigger. post this, closure of the Strait of Hormuz and, this restriction of oil, this lack of oil getting out, and what exactly is happening to the global economies at that point. And you can start to see, well, how true is this? Because then it'll start to make a bit more sense. Oh, it seems more clever that the U.S. would go and perform that operation in Venezuela, because it seems almost like it came out of nowhere. They were talking about it, and boom. And what's the one main thing they went for? Oil. And then they came out and said themselves that they had been planning this Operation Epic Fury for months. So it's not by coincidence that these things are happening. Remember, the way these elites deal, problem, reaction, solution, there's always more at hand than what you're seeing. Okay? And the bigger the move is that they're trying to pull off, the bigger the cover story or the bigger the event they will use is. They will go as far as to trigger a war, and they're trying to accomplish agendas on multiple fronts. It says here, the second critical question, right? The distinction matters significantly because the medium and long-term outcomes would look very different. Should attention be focused narrowly on Iran's nuclear program and regime change, or should the situation be analyzed within the much wider context of China, trade wars and tariffs, AI competition, Panama Canal, Red Sea, Venezuela, Syria, and Greenland? Why was he so adamant on getting Greenland? Why was he so adamant about Venezuela, their oil, and all these things that were happening before this war started? Do they all just go out the window? Because remember, Trump gets orders. Why would he be told go drop a bomb on him? Keep in mind as well that Israel, even though there's claims now that they don't have intelligence in within Iran's circle, which may or may not be true, but they had intelligence there for a good while. Hence, they were able to set up the whole pager, attack and so on. And is it that far fetched that they wouldn't have had some insight into how the way Iran sets up their their planning and so on for anticipation for something like this? Now, there could be that they just weren't privy to that. But then again, it could also be that, maybe they did have some insight to that. So there's a lot of speculation and up in the airs, right? But ultimately, we know we got to watch and see how these things go, right? And that's why we've been blessed, because we have prophecy and we know prophecy is certain, right? We know this is going to happen. Now, as we measure the times diligently, we see how things are playing out, and we can watch and see, okay, how does this domino affect this one and hit this one, leading to the collapse of this, that, and the third. But ultimately, the Lord told us to watch. And that's what we're doing, right? We're watching and we're seeing things. It says here, are we observing conflicts within a larger conflict? When those remember what Klaus Schwab said, right, about the frightening scenario, right, of a major cyber attack, and how it's gonna make the C-19 look like a walk in the park and so on. They have all these things in mind. It's just about the right time to fully kick in with this poly crisis, and the right trigger, right? Which angle should you hit the 8 ball from, right? Which angle should you hit, if you're playing pool, this ball from, to hit this and hit that and try to make the most out of that strike? Well, it says here, within a larger conflict where some groups are opportunistically exploiting the situation to pursue their own local objectives, as well as the problem. The problem now is attacks that spark panic buying while Saudi Arabia cannot react. Thus, U.S. SPR release is limited, and China might ban exports. Prices would go above $100 easily, but fear would contain demand growth, limiting the increase in oil prices. The impact on LNG and NGLs is higher than on oil. He said here, one of the problems here is we cannot go back quickly to normal. It will take at least 2 months if the war stops tomorrow. And from the way it's looking, it doesn't look like it will stop tomorrow. Okay. And then you have here lack of international cooperation, every country for itself. And ultimately, that is what it comes down to, right? They all look out for what's in their best interest. Even when they ally with other countries, it's what's in their best interest. It says here, who benefits from the Middle East in flames? The U.S. and Russia benefit the most. Losers are the rest of the world, with the EU, India, and Arab Gulf countries losing the most. China is prepared for the short run. If the war lasts months, China will be among the biggest losers. So there's a lot happening, right? A lot of, like I mentioned before, speculation and thoughts and so on. But what we have to always remember is this is the Heavenly Father's program. Okay, this is set up by Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Shai. He's controlling it all. And he told us. Okay, let's go there real quick. And there's so many precepts you can get on this, but I'll get this one here in might be Isaiah. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, Isaiah 46, verse 9. Right, remember the former things of old, for I am God and there is none else. I am God and there is none like me. Right, there is only one Most High. Declaring the end from the beginning. So how do we know the things that were going to happen now in the end times? Because the Lord already declared it and he revealed it to us pursuant to Amos 3 and 7. From ancient times, which are times in the past, the things that are not yet done. That's prophecy. Okay, in a nutshell, that's prophecy. Saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. See that? The Lord's counsel is what's going to stand. So what the Lord has determined and how everything is going to play out is exactly how it's going to play out. This is in the Lord. The ball is in the Lord's court. He's controlling it. He's controlling the minds of these different rulers. He's controlling the thoughts and the intents of the elites that give the orders back down to these presidents and so on. He's controlling the agents within each government's cabinet, influencing them. He's controlling every single part of what is going on. And as he says, I will do all my pleasure. So ultimately, we know that this will end in a nuclear war. But how we get about to that, the Lord is controlling, and moving pieces every day. And so we have to continue to watch and see. But I just wanted to mention that as I thought it was interesting, I was thinking about this, that there might be a bigger something bigger at play here than what we're seeing with this, war being triggered by the U.S. and Israel against Iran. Okay, so let's keep our eyes out. Let's see how things transpire, and it might give you a better hindsight view of what this trigger really was about. So Lord willing, this is edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodesh. And until next time, Shalom.